Game on, all you happy people. Welcome to Ref the District. This is episode 8. I'm your host, Nathan Perry, here with my co-host, the Stoner. We've lost the Flowers. You're back on home soil. And we got our good background full of all the Washington fandom and your salute to your own service that's hiding underneath that. Welcome back, the Stoner.
Thanks. It's good to be back in the home studio, but to be honest, I would rather be where I was. But this is it's nice to be back in the confines, the friendly confines of the home studio, and all, like you said, all of this background, which is where I'm the most comfortable. But again, I'd rather be where I was. But here we are.
It's always good to be with family. We hope that you get to get back with them. I know that. You had on your Twitter, you had kind of shown that there might be some complications with that there in April. So we're all hoping for you. We're all wishing for you. I mentioned his Twitter. You can come find us out on @TheRefTheDistrict. Hit us up on our email as well. We're obviously here streaming live on YouTube. We do this every Sunday at 10 a.m. and then you can catch the episode later. So if you're catching this episode later, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe, so that way you can actually catch us live at 10 a.m.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. It has been a crazy week for Washington sports. And it's also been a crazy week outside of that because there's a little thing you might know that's happening right now. It's March Madness. How's your bracket doing?
My bracket, like everybody else's, and I don't want to hear from anybody who says they're doing great, because nobody's doing great. Everybody's just busted. There's so many upsets. You try to pick the right upsets, but
I don't think I'm doing that bad.
It's not possible. What place are you in?
According to ESPN, I'm at like 2-point-something million. I'm in the top 18%. I think that's fair. You're talking 14 million brackets. I've got two top 16 teams that are out. Okay, that's not bad at all. I got Texas disappointed me. I hate Texas, and I picked them to win, and yet here they go. They go ahead and they lose. I should have looked at their history in the NCAA tournament with Shaka Smart. It's just not been great. So I should have known that they were going to be disappointing. And then Ohio State, I know a lot of people, they were busted. The Big Ten has not performed well.
Well, maybe not great, but they've still got some
solid teams in there. But I mean, if you look at this first round, they've lost, more than they've been in. I've seen a lot of people relate it to, the SEC when it comes to bowl games, right? It's just like, oh, we didn't really want to be there. When you have such a hard schedule, you just beat yourself up through the season. And, that all those kind of excuses are coming in. It'll be interesting. I have Gonzaga winning the whole thing. I think that they run the table. We'll see how that works out this week.
Well, way to go out on a limb there and pick the undefeated #1 team to win it all.
I mean, you play to win the game, right? Like we're not, I'm not sitting there. I don't have any money down on this. I'm not crazy about that. But you play to win the game. I'm going to pick the team I think that has the best shot. And Gonzaga this year has been dominant. Would I like to see a more local team like Maryland do well? Georgetown's out. I thought that they would have at least maybe done a little bit better than what they did after coming into the tournament on a tear through the ACC tournament. But they're gone. But Maryland's still alive.
Virginia's out.
Virginia Tech's out.
VCU's out. St. Mary's is out. Pretty much all the local, if you will, the teams in the general area, they're all out except for Maryland. They're kind of the last hope for this area. But I had Ohio State going to the Final Four, so they're out. But I still have my two dogs who are going to make it all the way to the end, which is Illinois beating Iowa. That's who I have winning it all.
That to me is a very interesting bracket that you have. That it would end up being that state rivalry game there. I think that's pretty interesting. I'd have to look at my bracket to tell you all the rest of them, but again, I got like an 82% pick rate right now, and I think that's pretty strong.
That's not bad.
That's pretty strong.
That's not bad, but I wouldn't be bragging about being in 2.6 millionth
See,
place.
when you say it like that, you hurt my feelings. I'm in the
You're
top
way
20%, top
Okay.
20, top 18%.
Who's this person that's number one? Who
Yeah.
right now
Well,
somewhere in the
on
world that's the number
on
one?
the ESPN brackets, there's no perfect bracket at this point out of the
Right.
14.7. So number one, they're still obviously doing very well, but they were busted at some point, and I wonder where
Yeah.
that was. Was that one of the top seeds, or was that one of the lower seeds? Did they pick a different upset? Because as you mentioned, everybody tries to get it. It's a very interesting thing. How did they pick their bracket? How do you pick your bracket?
Hey, I don't pick my bracket. I use a service, which is the Washington Post and Neil Greenberg's perfect. I think it calls it the perfect bracket, and it's won me pools in the past. So I know that when I pick the teams, I never win any pools. And one year I went and copied his team for team all the way through. I won an office pool. So that's kind of been my strategy from here on out. I don't know anything, so I'm going to let somebody else do the picking for me.
I can't believe you're resorting to letting somebody else pick your bracket. At least let your kid pick the bracket. Just like give them the logos. Let them pick off the team. Somebody pick off the team colors. Like, these are ways to pick the bracket. You don't just go copy a publication's bracket.
Why not? Why not? They're pretty successful at it, so why not?
Obviously not
Some
not
people
too
pay.
successful. Calling it the perfect bracket, and here you got Illinois and Iowa, and you're
Okay.
How badly are you busted? Like, you're if you were talking about me being not that great in the top 18%, where do you think you would be sitting at this point?
Well, I would probably be 2.5 million.
No, I
So
doubt that.
that would
I
be
doubt
ahead of
that.
your
You have top 8 teams that are. I only have 2 teams out of my top 16, right? That I've missed on, and I don't
So
have
far.
either one of those teams moving forward. So my bracket's still very much live later down the road. I'm not busted
well, we'll
that bad.
see.
I'm not at this point. At this point, at the time of recording, my bracket is still very much live. I only got 2
Right,
teams
but
that aren't that are hitting the top 16. So I
how many games are still left before you get to the 16?
I mean, we're about to hit,
Like 16
we're hitting
games?
around to 32. So we got 16
Yeah.
games, and I'm just saying that only 2 of those are guaranteed misses at this point. I can hit on 14 of 16, and I'm right there.
Talk to me on Tuesday morning.
I definitely.
When we get
I
down
will.
to the
I
Sweet
absolutely
16.
will. We'll be talking about it next week when your bracket and Illinois and Iowa are knocked out in this round of 16. We'll see how that goes.
Who are your 4?
My 4. Like I said, you're going to make me have to
predict.
make this look.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you while you're looking that up. I'll tell you that I have Illinois, Iowa, Ohio State. Okay, I'm already out 1, and Colorado. So I have a 1 seed. What is Iowa? 2 seed.
Yeah, they were good.
Colorado's a 5, and I think Ohio State was a 2 or a 3.
Right.
So I think my 4 will beat your 4 in the end.
We'll have to see. I picked good teams. Not this. I like Iowa. I think Iowa's a good team. I think Illinois is a good team. But I picked differently. I've got in my top 4 Gonzaga,
Shocker.
Alabama, Baylor, and Oklahoma State.
Oh, what are their seeds? Gonzaga's a 1.
I think it's a 1,
Alabama's
1,
a
2,
2.
1, and 4.
Oh, you went way out on a limb there.
Again, you play to win the game. These are good teams. Oklahoma State being my lowest, and I think that's honestly because I think Cade is just one of these great players, and so I think they're gonna make some noise based off of him. So we'll see. Projected number 1 pick. We'll see if Washington Wizards happen to get that number 1 pick, because Lord knows they can't win a basketball game. Although they did finally turn things around after Russ was just like, hey, this is all on me.
Hey, here I have a question for you. I'm gonna give you 2 teams. Okay, and I'm not gonna tell you who they are, and you're gonna tell me who the 2 teams are, possibly. All right, Team A. They were at one point sitting at 14-20, and somewhere around 12th place in the East. and many considered them underachieving for the year. Team B, 14-20, sitting in about 12th or 13th place. Many considered them underachieving this year. Since then, Team A has gone 8-0 and is now solidly in 6th place. They're now 22-20. Team B has only played 6 games during that time, but they're 1-5. And they're now 15-25. What is the difference, or what happened to one team, Team A, that did not happen to Team B, to turn it around? Any idea? Coaching. Team A, the Atlanta Hawks, fired their coach. They said, this is unacceptable. We're going to bring in a different coach. Well, just an assistant coach they promoted. But we're going to shake it up because our team is underachieving. Let's get a new coach in here, a new voice, and let's see what happens. They've gone 8-0 since then. Team B, let's just stick with the same guy who's been underachieving for 5 years, and let's see what happens. Oh, we're 1-5 during that time.
They were what, 8-9, and now in victories, and then they went 8-9 in losses. They just completely undid the big run they had. I just want to note one of our comments on our live stream here. Stoner buys Starry Night paint by numbers and tells people he's Van Gogh. How are you going to rip off another man's bracket, Stoner? How are you going to do that?
Well, because I know that I can't do it myself. That's been proven year after year. I'm 50 some odd years old, and I know this now. I don't trust my own picks, so I'm just going to use somebody else's pick. Who said that? Who is this person who said that? Will you call them out?
MNM Old Ham on YouTube. So we appreciate the live comment. Again, we broadcast this live every Sunday at 10 here on YouTube. You can join in on the fun, comment as we go along, and we will. I have no problem reading these comments live on air. And of course, you can catch the rebroadcast later on in the afternoon when the full thing gets posted. But then you don't get to have the fun with us. So come watch us live every Sunday at 10 a.m. All right, we've talked a lot of basketball, and obviously that's the big thing right now, March Madness. But we only got. We mentioned we only got Maryland in there. Maryland did well. Hopefully they continue doing well. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, I didn't pick them. You didn't pick them.
I didn't even pick them to win this first game.
Okay, well that's a little disappointing. At least I picked them to win the first game. We'll see how they can continue going forward. I do want to shift us a little bit into some other big news. Now, I happen to be didn't intentionally want to wear the same thing twice in a row. Okay.
Oh yeah, you did.
I wore this last week. I'm wearing it again. We got number 17 rocking, and that's because he is probably the happiest person in all of the DMV right now. He has a quarterback that will sling it. He has a good buddy of his who I think had a faster 40 time than he did coming out of college. And so I think he's got to be the happiest man in the DMV, maybe outside of maybe Ron Rivera, who's probably very happy that they got these picks. But maybe he's also disappointed that they had to go with Fitzpatrick instead of Stafford that they wanted.
So what is your feeling on the specifically, not everything, just specifically the Fitzpatrick signing?
I think of the available QBs. I think that he is absolutely somebody who will be good for the team. Now, I know a lot of people point to a couple things when it comes to him, right? You got Fitzmagic and you also got Fitztragic. He is a gunslinger. A lot of people like to point out that he's turnover prone. I'm actually shocked. When I looked at the numbers, he actually had less turnovers than I was expecting. He has scored
since when? His entire
over
career,
his entire career. Over his entire career.
Okay.
His last 16 games, he's absolutely balled out compared to Washington QBs in their last 16 games. But that's a very low bar to set. Okay? That's a very, very low bar to set. Now, the thing is with him, I think that you have the experience. You have somebody who's going to open up the offense. The other knock that I've seen on him is that in all of his 17 years, he's actually never made the playoffs. right? The closest he would have come is
Never.
2015 10-6 season with the Jets. He had an excellent season, that year. I think pair him with this defense. It opens up the offense. I think this gives us just chance. And who's to say he can't, make the playoffs in the 17th season? I feel like the turnovers is an overblown thing. I don't care that he's never made the playoffs because this is a different team. This is a different setup. And I think that the weapons here, both on defense and offense, are better. I mean, because who else are you gonna who else was out there, right? When we're talking at this time, yes, Jameis was still out there, Trubisky was still out there, but did you really like Winston? I think would have been an interesting choice for the team to go to because I still think he's young, and I think that Washington could have built around him for a few years. Maybe he's not the guy, but I think that he's got enough talent and he's young enough that he could be somebody who plays for the next 5-10 years at a reasonable level.
Trubisky and Fitzpatrick to me are pretty much the same, other than their age. Their play on the field is pretty much the same to me.
Okay, that's an interesting thing to say. I don't agree with that. I think that Fitzpatrick opens up the offense a lot more than Trubisky was. Trubisky's big thing was he's young. And
did I say Trubisky?
You said Trubisky.
I meant
Winston. Okay, in that case,
Winston and Fitzpatrick are pretty much the same quarterback.
I think Winston's a little bit more interesting. We'll see how he does without the in a full season. No Drew Brees. He's retired. Best of luck to him and his broadcast career that he's got set up for himself. Winston, obviously, he had the 30 for 30 season. We'll see what he does with the Saints. He might not even beat out Taysom Hill. You never know. Right. Here, Fitzpatrick, he's not going to be given the job, but his competition isn't big. And the other thing that I like about picking up Fitzpatrick is I don't think this stops them from drafting a QB in one of the first 3 rounds.
I think it does, but okay.
How does this stop them?
Well, I'll get into that later. You keep going. You keep going.
All right. Well, we did get a question. Does Fitzpatrick think if you play for 9 NFL teams and the 10th one's free? He's getting paid good money to play for Washington.
He's getting paid big money.
The $10 million is not a small thing for a guy who's largely been just kind of a realistically a fill gap, stopgap QB, and that's what he is.
Making like $2 or $3 million a year. Yeah. Here and there.
This is what he is for Washington. He's a stopgap. This is not somebody. He is so far advanced in his playing career that if he plays good, you sign him for another couple-year deal to again be that stopgap. But if he doesn't play good, you jettison him and you're fine. Now, where he doesn't stop us is we can draft a QB this year. Someone like they liked Trey Lance. Now we know that from our YouTube comments last week. Apparently there are some fans of North Dakota State who don't want to see him come here. Fine. Yeah. Okay. I don't want Washington to spend, 4 draft picks to move up for a guy who maybe not the guy. But I think that there is other people like Kellen Mond who might be worth it in the 3rd round. They have 2 third-round picks. Maybe you catch him on the last one. Maybe you have to go with him in the 2nd round because teams are QB needy, and he's a name that I've seen kind of start moving up people's draft boards. I don't know, but I don't think Fitzpatrick stops them. And what I like about that is if you get a guy who's developmental, and that's Trey Lance. A lot of people have talked about how he's very raw. He's got the talent, but he's very raw. Let him sit a year. I'm not saying Fitzpatrick is, somebody who, is a great mentor or anything like that. But he's been replaced by reasonable QBs,
So you want a carbon copy of the Dolphins last year when you had your number 1 pick sitting on the bench, and the team, regardless of how you're playing as a quarterback, are always going to have this guy just waiting to put him in to see what you've got, to see if your investment's going to pay off. That's what you want.
I'm not saying that's what I want. I think what the Dolphins did last year
I
think that's what the Dolphins did last year was interesting.
I think it was terrible, but that's
they ended up with 10 wins.
Right.
Would you not take
they
a 10
blew it in the
10
last
wins
game with Tua.
a 10-win season? That's 10-win season out in the AFC where it's actually competitive. A 10-win
Right.
season in the NFC East probably
Yeah.
wins it, right?
Well, yeah, it probably gives you a first-round bye in the NFC.
So
But
it's not
All
that
right.
bad of a deal.
I've been biting my tongue this whole time, which it's okay, because here's what I think about this entire Fitzpatrick situation. A lot of people have been I've been getting tons of questions and requests, people saying, Stoner, what about this Fitzpatrick situation? I've been getting it from email and text and Twitter. All right, I'm kind of making that up, and nobody's really asked my opinion. Maybe one or two people, and one of them was probably you. So nobody's really asking me, but I've been holding my thoughts on this until I could bring it out today. And I said at the beginning of our show, which was about 2 months ago, right? We're on episode 8. We do one every Sunday, 10 a.m. live here on YouTube.
Every week, even if somebody's in the hospital, even if somebody is 12-hour difference on the other side of the world, every Sunday
we're doing a show. I'm really unhappy about this, because when I said at the beginning that it would be irresponsible of this franchise to go into the 21 season, into training camp, without a franchise quarterback. And I view a franchise quarterback as somebody who is going to be your quarterback this year, next year, and for the next 3 to 5 years. And frankly, this organization has not had a franchise quarterback for 30 plus years. You can go all the way back probably to Theismann. We've had, hopefully, this is your franchise quarterback. We've tried all of it. We've tried drafting. We've tried free agency, and it hasn't worked out. And the reason I think it was that this year is different, that it would be irresponsible not to have that guy, is because they have a lot of the other building blocks already in place, and they're just missing that quarterback. Most teams get a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, and then try to build around him. Well, we've already built most of it, not everything, around it, and now it's time to put a franchise quarterback in place. And they didn't do that. And that ticks me off.
There's still the draft to come. Who says they don't draft the guy?
There's nobody at 19 that they're going to draft that's going to be your quarterback, and they're not going to move up.
You think
to get one of these
getting
guys.
Fitzpatrick stops them from moving up? If I bet you they have there was a deal in place. Kansas City had a deal in place to move up if Mahomes was there. They didn't tell, I think it was the Chargers, or maybe it was somebody, I forget who it was. They didn't tell them this is who we're moving up for. They just said, hey, we want to, for your pick, we're willing to give this up if the guy we want is there. Are you willing to do that for us? And they said, cool, all right, just let us know. And then come draft day, they're just like, cool, Mahomes is there. Hey, you want to do this deal? Yep, great. Here's the picks. They pick Patrick Mahomes. Washington could do that. If their guy falls to like 10 or 8, they can have a deal in place to be like, hey, our guy's there. Let's move up. Let's take them. This is a team with a window right now. I'm not saying it's a Super Bowl window, but it's a team that at least has a playoff window, which means for the next 3 years, I would expect Washington to be picking in the back end of the first round. And so if you're giving up a first round next year, where you're hoping that you're going to be picking 20 or later, and same thing for your later rounds where you're going to be picking later, you move up and you get that guy. And again, Fitzpatrick is a bridge for somebody who might be a little raw, because I don't think they're going to play as well with the weapons they have. I think that having a QB like Fitzpatrick, who, unlike our friend here on our live stream, I think he brings a lot more than Heineke. I think that you open things up to, again, be a playoff team next year, develop a QB that I think that would be fine, again, giving up some draft capital for, because they have a defense that they're going to have to pay money. And now they have offensive tools that they can surround a young QB, give them time to learn the playbook, under someone like Fitzpatrick and see how they develop.
Well, that's always easy to say that we want to just trade up and somebody else is willing to trade back for your 20 to 30th pick of a round. They have to be able to get something out of that.
They're going to get more draft capital. They might be in a position where they need that.
20 to 30.
They're going to gamble that you might not be there, right? It's all a gamble. I'm thinking Washington has a team that has this window, but there's always things that happen where all of a sudden we're picking in the top 5 again next year.
Right. Well, I could be proven wrong, obviously, but I don't think
look at Houston. Houston did this, right? Houston did this last year, where they traded away their first overround pick because they figured they were going to be a playoff team. They have a guy in Deshaun Watson who is uber talented, and they have enough skill on that team to make the playoffs. Things happen. They end up giving away a first round pick that happens to be within the top 10, a top 5 even, I think, if I recall correctly. So things happen. That's the gamble that the team that we're trading with, that will end up, that Washington is trading with, that's the gamble that they want to see happen. Obviously, Washington is saying they're betting on themselves. So,
yeah. Well, let me just say for the record, I think that this is a terrible.
See, every time Stoner tries to trash Washington, every time.
Well, listen, that's my job. That's what we're here for. We're repping the district. We are. You
don't know what happened though, Stoner. Your feed started cutting out the moment you started trashing, and it's every time. Every time you try to go trash the Washington football team or something that they're doing, you phase out. You phase out, and I'm just saying that's a sign. Remember how you don't even pick your own bracket? This is why. This right here, this decision making that you have is why. But it's interesting to see. I'm looking forward to the season. I'm on the Fitzmagic side. Sounds like you're on the Fitztragic side.
Well, to a point. Now, because they did not get their franchise quarterback, you think they might get one in the draft. I don't think they're going to waste draft capital on a quarterback. They might, but I don't think so. They had the opportunity to get a franchise quarterback. However, by whatever means possible,
they tried guys
available.
They tried for Stafford.
Right.
They didn't want Darnold, or they didn't like the price. Apparently, what I've been kind of seeing is Washington was never really interested in Darnold that much, and the Jets were the ones trying to push this out there to kind of raise the price, because I don't think anybody who's looking at Darnold doesn't want to give up maybe more than a third rounder, and the Jets were hoping to get a little bit more out of that. They're going to end up waiting until after they draft another QB, and then they're just going to have Darnold sit on the bench.
Right.
So
okay. So for whatever reason, they didn't get their franchise guy, right? So now you got to turn around and say, okay, we've got a choice of backups or free agents or guys who are rumored to be available, like the Mariotas and the Darnolds, guys you would have to trade for or hope they get released and that they'll come to you.
A lot of people thought Mariota was going to be released, and he still
might be.
Still with the Raiders.
But then you have all of these free agents, the Jameis Winston, Fitzpatrick, Trubisky, Jacoby Brissett, Mike Glennon, all of these just piles of garbage of quarterbacks. And of that pile of garbage, Washington went out and signed the shiniest piece of that.
I don't know that he was the shiniest, but he was, in his own,
all those available.
Of his words, this was the most he was sought after in his entire career. He had like 3 teams that were vying for his talents. Let's go back here for a moment on your idea of a franchise quarterback. Tell me again, break it down, three bullet points that make a franchise QB for you.
It's really actually simple. He's your quarterback today. He's your quarterback next year. And he's your quarterback for the next 3 to 5 years. That's a franchise quarterback.
Okay.
It's not a guy who's on a 1-year deal. It's not a rookie that you have no idea if they're going to play well. It's not a guy who had a good year here and there. It's a guy that you know is the real deal today, tomorrow, and he's signed for the next 3 to 5 years.
Out of the 32 teams in the NFL, how many franchise quarterbacks are there right now?
Let's just say 12.
That'd probably be generous,
12.
right? I don't think there's 12 teams that are in that situation where they know for a fact that the guy they have is the guy that is going to be playing for them years down the road, right? I mean, it could be a situation.
Why can't we be one of the 12?
I'm telling you, there's probably not even 12. There's probably 8 teams that are in that situation.
Okay, 8. Why can't we be one? Why can't Washington football team be one of those 8? Why is it that year in and year out, we just have to say, well, we don't have Aaron Rodgers.
They do continue to kick the can down the road. They do continue
for 30 years.
Eventually, they've got to, right? Like this is just odds. Eventually, they're going to pick a guy in the draft who is going to be that guy.
Well, they haven't yet.
No, I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying that there's a chance, right? Cue the Dumb and Dumber GIF. So you're telling me there's a chance. Okay, there's a chance that they finally get the guy who is going to play well enough that they actually are willing to give a contract, right? Like we had the Washington football team had Kirk Cousins, didn't want to give him a big contract, franchised him twice. Minnesota pays him big. Minnesota extends him. I don't even know that I consider Minnesota in a position that they call him their franchise QB.
Oh, 100% he's their franchise quarterback.
Well, then
I'm not saying
they've signed themselves up for mediocrity. I think that Cousins is a top 15 QB. Okay, I think that he is good enough. I think he's better than Fitzpatrick. I'll say that.
Oh, he's easily a billion times better.
But I don't think that he's so much better that he's going to put Minnesota in a better position to win games than Washington will be with Fitzpatrick.
Well, I completely disagree with that. The Washington would die to have Kirk Cousins here running this offense.
I don't know that that's accurate at this point.
Maybe not because of the history that they have with Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins, the quarterback, they would die to have.
Again,
that. He's better than anything that they've had for 30 years.
They're in a position right now where they've got a very talented defense, and they've now have some playmakers on offense. So they're in a position.
What did Kirk Cousins do with when he had playmakers? When he had Deshaun Jackson?
I can tell you what he's done in Minnesota. Jack Rabbit. Jack Rabbit. Like Minnesota's had a good defense. They made the playoffs. We would be happy. We would be happy as Washington fans to make the playoffs because we've, as a fandom, we've just been desperate for just having a good team, right? We finally have a team. They weren't even good last year. They had a 7-9 record. They stumbled really into the playoffs. They had Heineke hype was great. It was a lot of fun. I loved the leap. It kind of reinvigorated the fandom and saying, hey, this could be a team that does well. I mean, I'm talking about how we have an obvious playoff window, right?
Right.
Kirk Cousins in Minnesota has had that window, has a team that had a good defense, has had playmakers. You have one of the top 5 running backs over there in Minnesota, and yet they make the playoffs, or they don't make the playoffs sometimes. And they're just, with him, they're no better, in my opinion, than Fitzpatrick will be here in Washington.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I would much rather be Minnesota than Washington right now. Be a Minnesota fan than a Washington fan. If I had some weird universe, I had the opportunity to choose between one or the other.
You do.
Based on the roster.
You do. And I like how we're having this discussion with you like that towel in the background. So
where's that? This side.
So
well, I would love to have that franchise quarterback. You can debate whether or not Kirk Cousins is a franchise quarterback, or there are a lot of these guys who are on the periphery of franchise quarterbacks. But we have not had that here in so long, and it's
I'm
too
36
easy
years
to
old,
say.
And I honestly don't think we've had one in that time. I mean, we have a Hall of Fame coach who really made his Hall of Fame, one of the things that really kind of boosted his ballot was the fact that he won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. This guy just ran, Joe Gibbs just ran a system that just worked, no matter who was in there. We have Jazzy chiming in on our live chat right now. She brings up one of our topics I'll bring up here in just a moment. But she also says Stoner is also the man who thinks cheerleaders are worthless in the NFL. So we've got a lot of bad.
I didn't say worthless. I never said worthless.
Yeah, I think you said meaningless.
I said inconsequential.
Inconsequential. Oh, okay.
Or
I'm pretty sure those might be synonyms. We'll bring up the thesaurus here in a little time. But I think it just goes to show how bad your decision making really is at this point. Okay.
Hey, listen, I'm just a dumb fan. I don't know, but I can look back and I can say that nothing has worked. Maybe I can't look forward and predict what's going to happen, but I will say this about a prediction. I will predict that somewhere in the middle of next season or this upcoming season, Washington will be 2-5. And Fitzpatrick he'll have a couple of really good games. And then in that 8th game, they'll go into halftime. They'll be down 17-3 to the Giants. And he'll have 2 interceptions. One of them returned for a touchdown. And everybody will be saying it's time to bring in Heineken.
All right, we're going to have to clip that. That's going to end up on Twitter. I look forward to seeing that on Freezing Cold Takes. We'll see how that goes. We've talked to QB. Yeah. I want to talk about these weapons that we've mentioned that they have weapons. I mentioned at the beginning that I'm wearing this because there's somebody who's really happy to have a friend of his, and Jazzy reminded us of another wide receiver acquisition that we made a few years that maybe didn't pan out. Now we've had more than a few of those, but she brings up Deshaun Jackson, somebody who had a lot of speed, somebody who did something or not really did anything for the Washington franchise. Curtis Samuel, lots of speed, gadget player.
Love it.
I think that this is money.
I love it. I think he was the best available out there. But some people might say Galladay, whatever. 1A, 1B, or 1 and 2, whatever. Curtis Samuel, I think, is going to be a home run for this team. He's exactly what they needed. They needed another guy on the opposite side of McLaurin who can stretch the field, who can make tough catches, who can run after the catch, who can run the ball. He does everything that you would want in a second weapon. And it is a home run that they signed him and didn't break the bank. Although, if they had broke the bank for him, I'd been okay with that as well. I don't worry about
a great
money.
deal, a 3-year deal at that. So it's a lot of these receivers were signing 1-year deals because the market wasn't there for them. There was a lot of wide receivers on the market. You got a lot of wide receivers in the draft who people are falling in love with. I think you mentioned 1A, 1B. I think Galladay is great, and I hate that we're going to have to face him. The Washington, is going to have to face him twice a year now that he's with the Giants. But Samuel, honestly, is probably the best fit for Washington.
I think so.
Better than Galladay, right? When it comes to the offense that they have, this is like he's going to line up anywhere on the field. He can line up in the backfield. He can line up in the slot. He can line up on the outside. He's got speed to burn. He does make those difficult catches. He's somebody who, in the last year has really started budding. And then again, going to the QB play, whether or not it's Fitzpatrick or Heineke, even Allen kind of tossed the ball out there. We'll see who's playing QB. They have these weapons. If it's Fitzpatrick, I know both Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin are happy because he targets his number 1 and number 2 all the time. I would not be surprised to see both these receivers end up with over 1,000 yards. If Fitzpatrick plays the full season,
that's saying a lot.
If Fitzpatrick plays the full season, I think Terry McLaurin's locked for 1,500.
Woo! That now 1,500 is another level.
I think. Look at what he's done. Look at what McLaurin's done with nobody playing alongside of him, and who was throwing him the ball. Mm-hmm. You had J.D. McKissick have 80 catches because Alex Smith can't see past 5 yards. Okay, yeah. So now you have a QB who loves to sling it, and you have a wide receiver too who is going to open things up so you can't double and triple team McLaurin. I think that this is a great place for Washington to be in offensively. I think Samuel is going to have more than 1,000 yards, at least from scrimmage. You know, if not just receiving, receiving and rushing, he's going to have more than 1,000 yards. I would not be surprised that the two of them end up over 1,000 yards just receiving. And McLaurin, again, if Fitzpatrick plays 16 games, I think is a lock for 1,500 yards.
Wow. So 1,500 plus Samuel at 1,000. That's 2,500 yards between two guys. Yes. So that's not counting any of the receivers, any of the players out of the backfield.
What other receivers?
Tight ends.
What other receivers does Washington have?
Well, you can't just throw to two guys. You're gonna.
You can if they have sub 4.3 speed.
Right. It doesn't usually work out that way where two teams have 1,000-yard receivers and one of them's 1,500. That's a rarity.
I think you should go back and you should check this out because this has changed over the years. Okay, we're gonna have to bring up the stat book for this one, and we'll double check the numbers. But I think it's a lot more realistic than you're thinking.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to go and check that out, and maybe we'll update that next week. But I don't think it happens that often. 1,500 yards
is a lot
for receivers.
He's gonna probably have 115 catches.
Oof! Wow, that's a little. I think okay. Tom Brady. Did they sign Tom Brady and nobody told me? Did they? What happened? What happened here?
You have a gunslinger. You literally have a guy who's willing to throw the ball all the time, and his average air yards, I think I've seen it, is double digits. Okay, right. You're having a person who loves to throw the ball.
Or his interceptions.
Again, right. Look at his play. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. Over his career, he's had way more touchdowns than he's had turnovers. Even if you include just the fumbles, like not just the fumbles that the defense recovered, fumbles lost. You actually just, the fumbles, because really fumbles is just a random thing. That little egg-shaped ball just bounces and whoever grabs it, okay?
Yeah.
So if you just take all of his fumbles, whether or not they're recovered by his team or not, and his interceptions, you take his touchdowns that he's passed for and that he's run for, and he has way more touchdowns than he does have.
Well, he should. Every quarterback.
I'm not saying that he doesn't turn the ball over. By the way, he does. But we're not getting a guy who is going to be, again, like the Washington QBs, of the past that have thrown more interceptions or had more turnovers than they've had touchdowns. And again, you're getting a QB here who's throwing the ball for 10 plus yards every time he drops back. Okay, so he's opening it up. So these receivers, Curtis Samuel, again, probably could be a wide receiver 1 on most teams, is now our wide receiver 2. You're going to have this absolutely stellar wide receiver duo. You can still pick one up in the draft. Otherwise, you're just hoping Harmon comes back healthy and returns to show some of those flashes he did his rookie year. Cam Sims we've talked about this before, quality wide receiver 4 or 5, right? Like not a person that you're upset that's on the roster at that level, right? We weren't obviously not that great to be with the wide receiver 2, but at 4 or 5, he's fine. Okay?
Which nobody cares about wide receiver 4 or 5. No. I don't. I don't care about that guy.
More often than not, what you're going to see is if Washington lines up in a 4 receiver set, you're going to see a McKissick or you're going to see Gibson out there.
Right.
And that's another. We haven't even talked about how well this is going to open up Gibson, who was already one of the best rookie running backs from this last year.
Yeah.
He's going to have.
Well, let's hope.
He last year, by the way, was his first year playing running back. So now he's got a full year with running back underneath his belt, and he's going to have receivers who can actually bring people off the line of scrimmage, and he's going to have more room to operate.
So you're obviously very optimistic about this offense going from a complete poop show to the greatest show on turf.
I didn't say that.
Or grass, because they're at home and they're on grass. But I don't see it. I hope it'll happen. My prediction and my expectation is that halfway through the year, Fitzpatrick's going to get benched for Heineke, And I will not root for that. I don't root to be right on my predictions. I root to be wrong when I make a prediction like that. So hopefully they're going to have a much improved offense. That's not going to be hard to do. Their offense was so putrid last year. They had 8 touchdowns by wide receivers last year. 8.
Again, outside of McLaurin, we've talked about this. Who were they throwing to? They had nobody. And then again, you had QBs who just
terrible.
not playing well. They weren't playing well. So now I think that you have a QB who can play well enough. I'm not predicting that all of a sudden Fitzpatrick is going to be a 5,000-yard passer, throw for 35 touchdowns to like 10 interceptions. I'm not saying that. If I had to put down a number right now,
all right, give me some numbers.
I think that he is going to be either at 4K or just shy of 4K.
Okay.
All right. I think that he's going to throw for probably upper 20s, maybe low 30s for touchdowns. And I think
which he's done once in 17 years.
And I think that you're probably going to see him anywhere turnovers, not just interceptions, turnovers, probably mid to high teens.
Okay.
Okay.
So all of a sudden at 38 years old, Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Washington football team is going to turn into John Elway.
I didn't say.
Great.
If he throws
great,
for 28 and 16,
happened.
if he throws for 28 touchdowns to 16 interceptions, you wouldn't be happy with that? And he's had multiple. He's had 3,000-yard seasons.
Okay, but I just don't see it.
3,500 yards, 28 and 16. You're telling me that he's not capable of that?
No, he's capable, but it's not going to happen here because he's not even going to start 16 games. He's not even going to start 10 games. I predict he'll start less than 10 games because of injury. Hello, he's 38 and he likes to run around. He loves to throw the YOLO ball.
He does. I
right?
mean, he
loves to just
literally had his helmet being ripped off last
last
year and tossed the ball. By the way, that ball was caught. Just pointing it out there.
Well, he does that. That's one that's a highlight because it was caught, but he's had plenty of those where it was not caught.
This is Brett Favre like. He's the meme where it's just like, Mom, I want Brett Favre, and Rivera's just like, we have Brett Favre at home, and then points to Fitzpatrick. Okay, he's the knockoff brand. He's a guy who's just gonna sit there and sling it. Enjoys the game of football. What did Rivera say that he wanted? He wanted football players that enjoy playing the game of football, and they got that in Fitzpatrick, and they got that in Curtis Samuel. And they're still looking for some defensive help.
Well,
they got one guy who was probably one of the best defensive backs available.
Yeah,
William Jackson.
Absolutely, and that certainly helps. And now you've got 2 corners that you're paying a lot of money to both of them. So you've got 2 hopefully shut down corners that you can build the rest of your defensive backfield around. And Cam Curl's still my guy. Love him. Landon Collins, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But maybe the improvement with those guys on the outside, the emergence, of course, of the front set, the front 4. He wasn't really around for most of that when Chase Young started going off. Landon Collins was already out. So maybe he comes back healthier and better. Who knows?
The front 4 play definitely helps the back 7.
Of course.
Now, I'm excited because I think Jackson playing opposite Fuller is going to be a good thing for us, and I'm excited that Ioannidis is coming back. Right?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
This is he was actually showing more promise early on than some of the other defensive linemen that were drafted higher than him. So him coming back, I think that this defense. That defensive front can really help out the backfield, and maybe Collins, who says that he will not play linebacker.
Right.
Cam Curl. The problem that I think we have is Cam Curl and Collins really play the same position. Both of them are strong safety. They're not free safety.
So they need a safety.
They do. They need a free safety. They, I think though with Jackson. Having him line up against Fuller, I think Jackson probably outplays Fuller this season.
Well, let's hope so, because Fuller was good last.
Fuller was. There was a couple.
He was borderline Pro Bowl.
Yeah, there was a couple times he got burnt, which was disappointing. But
Well, the best corners in the world get burned.
And it was also, I think there was
every
some
once in a while.
communication issues in there. And that will be where we see some potential issues with Jackson is him coming on, hopefully as things calm down and people get vaccinated and everything, that that the team gets OTAs, that Jackson really gets to have that communication,
full training camp, all that.
Because that would be the biggest thing. And then, like I said, Collins comes back. Maybe they go to, I've seen crazy sets where maybe they go to 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and the rest are DBs. You get Curl and Collins out there. A lot of teams we mentioned, they do 4 receiver sets a lot now. There's not a lot of teams lining up with a fullback and 2 tight ends.
Right.
And, maybe Curl can cover a tight end. We'll see,
Okay, so here we are. We're mostly through free agency. There are guys still out there, but nobody of consequence, really. You haven't had the draft yet, but here we are at this point. What would you grade so far the off-season for the Washington football team?
I would probably, and I'm a stickler. I used to be an instructor at the Defense Information School, and my students will tell you straight up that I'm pretty harsh. I'd probably give them a B plus. I think a lot of people are giving them A's. I think Pro Football, the stats guys, they said that they were technically the most improved team. They're kind of bouncing back and forth between New England, who went on a huge spending spree, and Washington. But I think that there's still some needs. I think that they want more of a playmaking tight end. I think that they need a linebacker. So we'll see.
And a tackle.
A tackle would be nice. I think that
they
at 19 there might be a tackle available there.
I think that's who they go for. I think they go for a tackle in the first place.
As long as it's not a guy like Isaiah Wilson, who's probably never playing another down in football. My goodness, a first-round pick last year, plays 1 snap, doesn't play for the Titans, gets traded for conditional 7ths and like a swap for 7ths, and then Miami cuts him before the season. Just as long as you don't fall into that trap, as long as Washington doesn't fall into that trap, then hopefully we'll see.
I'd give them a B as well. I wish you're right. A lot of people are giving them A's. Just because of the Fitzpatrick being the best of what was available.
Well, they also hit on Jackson and they hit on Samuel. Those are quality. See. All it is a guessing game at this point. That's all you can.
Right.
These were top-rated guys, and they got top-rated guys. They needed a QB, and they signed one of the better QBs out there. If nothing else, Fitzpatrick is going to motivate that locker room, right? He's a locker room guy. That's all you like. People love him. People love playing with him.
But I think our grades are about the same. I would give them a B. I think those we talked about it in the offseason. What were the most important things that they had to do? Number 1 was quarterback. Number 2 was a playmaking receiver. Sign Scherff, although you don't consider him.
I don't consider him
a franchise. Tag. I mean, he's signed for the year.
We talked about him signing long term.
Yeah, and I think he still will. They've got time to do that. I think he'll sign long term.
You don't think he pulls a Cousins? You don't think he pulls a Cousins where he just plays this year?
I don't think so.
Gets another All Pro and then comes back and says, "Okay, guys, what's the baseline here? All right, then I'm moving on."
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. He doesn't seem.
There's a lot of linemen on the market right now. Interior ones included. It'll be interesting to see where they set the market. He is somebody who's an all-pro lineman. Does $1 to $2 million more. I think the highest contract I've seen was $14 million average a year. Is he a $16 million a year guy? I think so.
Yeah, and I think they should sign him to a long-term deal, and hopefully they will. But they've done just about everything that we said that they needed to do, other than at this point really is a linebacker. And that's what their biggest need is to me right now. So we'll see. Hopefully they address it in the draft, or there's somebody out there that they can get. But they definitely need
They
a
definitely
linebacker.
do.
They
He
do
was
not
listed
have-
as a linebacker early on in his career. He's really a conditional edge rusher at this point. But we do have a question in our live chat. Do you think Kerrigan will come back?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But it'd be great. But they'd probably sign him to like a 1 year, couple $1 million or whatever. But no, I don't
think
so.
that I would love to. Obviously, I have the jersey on this side here. Great team player. I think that he really thinks that he is a starter still, and realistically, he is just a conditional pass rusher. I don't think the market's there for him, and I think it's possible Washington could sign him back. But again, with Ioannidis coming back, the draft coming up, I just don't know that they are willing to pay him what he wants, and they're certainly not willing to give him what he wants, which is a starting position. He's just not.
Well, we'll see. It'd be nice to have him back, but I don't expect
again
it.
A leader in the locker room, a stand-up guy who really just enjoys the game of football. But at this point in his career, I mean, you're talking this as a business. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. Agreed.
We'll see how the draft shakes out. Free agency still going for Washington, but that's their off season. We got some in-season stuff to talk about. Your Capitals looking pretty good.
So they're only my Capitals. You haven't come aboard yet.
I feel like I have to buy my way in, especially after the Crosby thing.
Yeah, that almost got me to quit this podcast. I almost had to say, we're not doing this anymore. I can't be associated with
I can't use the 2 letters and the numbers that are associated with the QB of pass, because you have threatened to absolutely quit. Was that worse than that, or was this?
That's probably on the same level, I would say. But yeah, the Caps they're hot. They did lose last night, but they went after Tom Wilson got his suspension. They went 7-0 during his absence. And then he came back last night and they lost. So maybe Tom Wilson's the problem. They need to not have. I say that in jest. He's a fantastic player. But yeah, 7-0, back on top of the East. They're playing well. Now they have a nice little mini break. Got 4 days off. And then they go into at least every other night they'll be playing until the end of the regular season. So the grind is really going to start hitting them coming up here. But they've been playing excellent hockey. They get to play some skells like Buffalo and New Jersey, just terrible teams. But when they play the big boys, they play them very well. So we'll see. I like how they're playing, getting good goaltending, getting good scoring.
Ovi scored, I think, 4 to 5 games there for a stretch.
He went 5 straight games with a goal.
That's what it was.
And then 6 out of 7, and in those 7, he scored 7 goals. So he's up to 720 in his career, which is now 6th place all time. Yeah, he's got an outside chance of getting to 5th this year.
A lot of people thought that it was going to take a lot longer for him to get to that spot, but this recent goal tear, you never know. He's been playing outstanding.
He's been very
the
good.
Team itself has been playing outstanding. Good for them. Again, we talked a little bit about the Wiz earlier. They're not playing outstanding.
No, they're terrible. They suck. I mean, they had a nice little streak there, but come on, can you get a new coach in there and maybe light a fire or something?
Is the coach it? Do you think that there's bigger problems in the coach?
Of course, they don't have the talent.
Trade deadline's coming up. Do you think they're selling? Are they selling or are they buying?
They're staying.
They're just standing pat.
They might.
Whatever they're doing right now is what they want to continue doing. I don't think that's true.
They're not going to trade any of the big names. They're not trading Beal or Westbrook or Rui or Avdia. I mean, he's not a big name, but he's their number 1 pick this past year. They're not trading any of those guys. They might trade Troy Brown Jr. or Jerome Robinson or whatever.
Mo
some
Wagner.
Guys from the back of the bench. Yeah, they might throw Mo Wagner. So we'll see what happens with that, but they're not going to make some big deal. I'd like to see them trade for or pick up out of waivers Andre Drummond from Cleveland. That would be huge because that's their biggest problem is their defense and their rebounding. So if they could get him, but I don't see him wanting to come to Washington. I mean, he's got so many other choices to where he could go if he gets released. But he's just sitting out now because they've just agreed that they're going to get rid of him. So he's just sitting around doing nothing and getting paid big money for it. But yeah,
living the dream, right?
There's no hope. There's no hope.
None whatsoever. They had a tear. Do you think they can pull that off again?
I think they can because the toughest part of their schedule, they just went through it, or they're still in the middle of it. When they had Utah and Philly and Milwaukee back to back, they got Brooklyn tonight, and then they got 2 against the Knicks back to back. But then they start playing all of those teams that are either out of the playoffs or just right on the edge, like the Indiana, Orlando, Detroit, Cleveland, Golden, all those teams that are not great. And that's where they can start to build wins if they don't mess up and lose to like Sacramento.
I tweeted this. So you're mentioning the teams that they should be beating, but they don't. Yes. They just haven't really been consistent.
They don't. Right.
I tweeted this at the Nathan Perry. They have 15 wins, right? 6 of those wins, there's actually 7 of those wins, have come against the top 6 teams.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how they'll beat good teams and then lose to terrible teams.
And even so, there's no more victories, and you either get the W or you don't get the W. If you look at this most recent loss, there's been some bad L's, right? There's been some bad losses. There's also been a couple that looked like they could have won. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if they can play 50-50 ball for a little bit,
right?
And then just go on a small tear. We're looking back at potentially being the Washington Wizards being a playoff team.
Yeah, and I think that'll actually happen. I think they'll get into that soft part of their schedule and they'll start winning more than they lose, and they'll somehow get into maybe that 10th spot, the play-in game. Hopefully that's what happens. They have enough talent to do that. They just can't get too down on themselves over this particular streak that they're going on with all of these top teams that they're playing. Again, they got Brooklyn tonight, who they've beaten twice. That's part of those 6 wins against top teams. So who knows? Maybe they'll win again. But then they've got that nice soft schedule. Chalk up some wins, get themselves into a position to where they could battle for a playoff spot. But maybe fire the coach and get somebody else in too. That would be nice. Let me just throw that.
Scotty's got to go. We are back on that one. Hashtag Scotty's got to go. Scotty doesn't know.
Yeah, it's nothing personal against Scott Brooks either, by the way. I think he's a great guy, and I just don't think he's a great coach.
He's certainly not helping out the Wiz right now. I think that they have talent. I do think they need, what they need is they need the talent outside of Westbrook and Beal to actually do something.
Right.
Rui, he's still essentially a rookie at this point. Hasn't played a full season. I think he might be up to, late 70s games. So he's still a little inconsistent there. But then you got the outside shooting that's just abysmal. The three-point shooting, I think, might be the worst in the league. If not statistically the worst, then it certainly feels like the worst when you're watching them play. You have a guy in Bertans that's literally his job. Just don't do anything else. Like, he tried to block a dunk and it went horribly wrong for him. Like, don't do that. That's not what you're here for. That's not what you're getting paid to do. You're paid to shoot from the 3-point line, and he's not doing it.
Well, he's not as terrible as you would think. He's had some streaky games. Like, he had one game where he was like 8 for 12 or something like that.
He's had a couple of those games, but then you see most of his stat lines is like 1 for 9. And you're just like, this.
But if you look at his overall numbers, he's going to be in the probably top 15, top 20 of 3-point shooters.
I want you to relook at those numbers, Stoner.
I need you to relook. I don't think it's terrible.
If you're looking at top 15, you're looking at. Go ahead and look this up while I'm talking.
All right,
talking trash about this guy, because top 15, I would expect you to be in the late 30s percents or low 40s, because I want to say that the top 5 at least are above 40%, shooting. And obviously you got to get the numbers in there as far as like how many shots, because you can't have a guy who just shoots like 10 and makes 4 of them. But
right.
I think I'm pretty sure he's like at 32% for the season. 32.
Ooh, that's
check it out. I need you to check the stats.
All right, I'm checking.
But I'm telling you, I don't think he's as high as you think he is. Again,
while I'm doing this, a little sidebar, apparently my keyboard doesn't work on my computer all of a sudden. So I'm going to the phone, and we're going to look at 3-point leaders at some point. I will find it.
So they have a rookie. They haven't really been playing as much. He's been seeing a little bit more play time. I think Neto was a solid pickup. He's been great. But again, when it comes to somebody shooting on the outside, you have Beal and nobody else. And then even Beal will drive the ball to the rim more often than not.
Right.
What I have seen is in a lot of these victories, Westbrook, you look at his turnovers and he's doing better on the victories. And even some of these losses, he's actually not been really the reason. I know this is a big point of contention with our friend Kwame as well. People are dogging Westbrook the other day for the errant inbound pass, but it was like this. Brody literally dragged the team back into contention for that game. And then you got 0.7 seconds. You're not going to really have a great shot at winning anyways. And then,
well, what was Neto doing in the middle there when he threw that and he kind of ducked to let it go over his head? If he had jumped and caught it and shot it all in one motion, he would have had a chance. But maybe that wasn't the play that brilliant coach Scott Brooks put up there. So therefore, he thought maybe somebody was behind him. But I thought it was actually the right pass at the time, but it just didn't work out.
Took the L. I'm really interested in seeing what you got for Bertans, because I can't imagine he's better than, I guarantee he's not above 35. 35. I'd be shocked if he's above 35%.
Okay, so I'm just going to look up Bertans.
Look up his. We could probably tell where he is based off of his numbers, and I'm saying he's about 32%, which is awful. Awful if that's literally your job, is to shoot three-point shots. 32% is like, that's Westbrook level. Like, that's what I expect him to be at.
Right, which he probably is. So let's see, for this year,
okay, all right,
he is shooting from the field, from 3-point range, 38%.
38%? When? When is he doing this?
I told you he's up there. When you have a game where he's like 9 for 12, that certainly helps your percentage out. But yeah, and he's a career 40, almost 41%
he should,
3-point shooter.
Again, this is a guy who, that's literally his job, and I'm shocked. I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I'm going to have to look this up myself after we're off air, because I don't believe it. I don't believe it. 38%?
No, he's
win.
38.2%.
His last 4 games, he's not even shooting that. Not even close.
All right, let's look at his last 4 games. He didn't play against Milwaukee.
I guess he's been banged up too. So he all
right, here you go.
Goodness gracious.
3 for 5 was his last game.
Reasonable. That's fine.
Wait, sorry, that wasn't the last game.
Then scratch that. Well, we're moving on. Okay.
All right, hang on. Okay, 3-pointers are right here. So, 2 for 8.
Awful.
3 for 5.
That's fine.
1 for 5. 3 for 7.
Okay, that's all right. That's not great, but it's okay.
2 for 5.
All right. I guess technically that's 40%. I don't like it.
Right. 2 for 5. Again, he's had a lot of these. 5 for 9.
Okay, that's a good game.
5 for 11.
That's not a great game. I mean, it's okay.
That's almost 50%.
If you're taking
that's 45%.
If you're taking 11 shots, fine. I guess 5. Yeah, statistically, 5 is fine.
The perception that you have of him is that he's been terrible, and I don't think he's been terrible. He's not up to where he normally is.
I'm okay with the
41%
3 for 5
career
games
shooter.
more than I'm okay, because you got to look at what those misses do, right? When you're 5
Sure.
for 11, that's 6 times that if we didn't grab that rebound, that's essentially a turnover. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's 5 times to where they got 3 points instead of 2 or
Okay,
0.
So again, I prefer those games that are he's like 3 for 5. Okay.
Okay.
I prefer that.
Let's not forget about his 9 for 11 here. He was 9 for 11 one game.
Okay. So I was wrong on the 38. I thought I had 32.
You said he was barely 32.
I could have been. Again, I'm flabbergasted. He just doesn't. When I watch the games, when he gets the ball and he shoots it, it just always seems like it misses every time. Every time.
I will take him shooting a 3-pointer over Avdia shooting anything, a wide open layup. That's for sure. Which I've seen him miss one of those.
Well, I mean, come on.
Well.
Westbrook even has missed a couple dunks.
And those were costly
those
too.
Were,
in that
those were big.
Loss
those were big.
Oh.
It's okay. It happens sometimes. We miss quite a bit. Who knows how our predictions are going to play out for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah. We're wrong more than we're
we
right.
are,
At least
but
I
we
know
have a lot of fun. We hope that you have a lot of fun with us. Again, you can catch us every Sunday at 10 a.m. where we will broadcast live here on our YouTube channel. If you don't catch us live, where you can interact with us in the chat, you can always catch the recast later in the afternoon when that goes on. We will be sharing some clips on Twitter. You can catch us at Twitter at Ref the District, our personal ones at the Nathan Perry and at StoneDog23 as well. Interact with us. If you're here watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I looked at the numbers. We're about as bad as Bertans is at shooting 3-point shots when it comes to that.
Well, that's the perception. Maybe we're a little better.
By the numbers, 60% of you who watch this aren't subscribed to the channel. Please subscribe to us. That makes us feel better. I am still healing, so I need that good vibes to continue healing. Hope that you've enjoyed episode.
We're not above begging.
I'm not above it. I'm definitely not above it.
That's right.
Thank you for watching episode 8 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. He's the Stoner. Thank you, and have a good day.